It was supposed to be just another company event, another night of celebration and laughter. But little did I know, that evening would unravel everything I thought I knew about my marriage. As I stood there, surrounded by colleagues and friends, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling gnawing at me. The secret glances between my husband and his secretary, the way they spoke so closely, it was all too suspicious. And then, a mysterious phone call shattered my world. What I was about to discover would change everything I believed about love, trust, and betrayal. As he received accolades for his hard work, he was the CEO of a successful company, and everyone at the event adored him. The night was supposed to be one of celebration, an evening of joy to mark another successful year. But that night, something felt off. I had always believed that my life was perfect. I had a husband who was everything I could have asked for. Successful, loving, and devoted. We had built a life together, a family, and for the longest time I thought we were invincible. He was the kind of man everyone admired, the man everyone looked up to. He worked hard, climbed the corporate ladder, and always made time for me and our children. We were a picture-perfect family, or so I thought. We met in college, and from the moment I saw him, I knew there was something different about him. He had this charm, this charisma, and a drive that I found irresistible. Our relationship was smooth from the start. We got married after a few years of dating, and I believed we were meant to be. He always made me feel special, and together we built a life filled with love and ambition. But as the years passed, I began to notice small cracks, things I had brushed off as minor inconveniences. A late night at work here, a missed call there, but I never questioned him, never wanted to believe there could be any reason to doubt his loyalty. We had 2 kids by then, and the house was always filled with the sound of their laughter. Life was busy, yes, but it was happy. I didn't want to rock the boat. That evening, everything changed. It was the annual company gala, a tradition that had been going on for years. I had attended every year, standing proudly beside my husband. At first it was subtle. I noticed that my husband seemed a little distant, a little preoccupied, more than usual. He was still the charming man everyone adored, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. He kept glancing at his phone, his attention divided, as if he was waiting for something. I brushed it off, convincing myself that he was just tired, or perhaps dealing with work-related stress. After all, he had been under a lot of pressure lately, leading the company through some difficult transitions. But then, I saw her, his secretary. I had seen her a few times before, always polite, always professional. I had never paid much attention to her until that night. She was standing by the bar, her eyes darting nervously in my direction. I wasn't sure if she had noticed me watching, but there was something unsettling about the way she kept glancing back at my husband. And there was something in the way he looked at her too, something I couldn't quite put my finger on, a certain familiarity, a subtle smile they shared. It was nothing overt, nothing you could point to as proof, but the feeling in the pit of my stomach was undeniable. I tried to shake it off. I told myself I was overthinking it, that I was just being paranoid. But as the night went on, the unease in my chest grew stronger. They were talking more often now, stepping away from the crowd to have hushed conversations. He laughed at something she said, and I felt a pang in my heart. The kind of pain that you get when you sense that something isn't right, but you don't know why. It was a feeling I couldn't ignore any longer. My instincts were telling me something was wrong, but I refused to believe it. My husband wouldn't do that to me. He couldn't. But as the evening wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to learn something I didn't want to know. Something that would shatter everything I had ever believed about my perfect life. And little did I know, the truth was closer than I thought. The night at the company gala dragged on, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. My husband, who I had always trusted completely, was now acting distant in a way I had never seen before. His interactions with his secretary, though subtle, seemed far too intimate for mere professionalism. I told myself it was just my overactive imagination, that I was reading too much into things. But the more I observed, the more I became convinced something was off. It wasn't just the way they whispered to each other across the room or exchanged secretive glances. It was the way they seemed to fit so perfectly together. I excused myself to the restroom, needing a moment to breathe, to gather my thoughts. As I walked down the quiet corridor, I tried to focus on the fun memories from previous galas, how my husband and I used to joke about who would win the awards, and the little moments of laughter we shared with friends. But tonight, everything felt different, as if some invisible thread had snapped between us. When I returned, I caught sight of my husband once again, but this time he was standing close to his secretary near the bar. She was laughing at something he said, her hand lightly touching his arm. That was when it hit me, the casualness of their touch. It wasn't just friendly, it was something more. My heart raced in my chest, and my mind screamed at me to confront him, but I didn't know how. What if I was wrong? What if I was just overreacting? What if this was just me being insecure, imagining things that weren't there? As I stood in the crowd, I noticed something that made my stomach churn. My husband's secretary was watching me, really watching me. I couldn't decipher her expression, but it wasn't a friendly glance. There was something calculating in her eyes. The way she held her drink, the slight tilt of her head, it was as though she knew something I didn't. Something I should know. My breath caught in my throat. The unease inside me grew to a point where I could no longer ignore it. I couldn't just stand there and pretend everything was fine. I needed answers. I needed to know what was really going on between my husband and his secretary. I quietly walked over to where they were standing, hoping to confront my husband in private. But as I approached, I overheard their conversation. At first, it was casual, the typical work chatter. But then I heard her laugh, soft, flirtatious, almost intimate. "Don't worry, everything's going out according to plan," she said, her voice low enough that only he could hear. I froze in my tracks, my mind racing. What plan? What were they talking about? The blood drained from my face. My heart pounded in my chest as my hands began to shake. Was this something I was supposed to ignore? Or was I hearing the truth I never wanted to face? I stood there, frozen, unsure of what to do. Should I walk up and confront them? Should I pretend I hadn't overheard? But before I could make a decision, my husband turned around, his eyes locking with mine. For a moment it felt like time stopped. There was guilt in his eyes and a flicker of something else, something I couldn't identify but something I knew I wasn't supposed to see. He didn't say a word, but the silence between us spoke volumes. It was like he knew I had heard everything. He had no excuse left to give, no way to hide behind the facade any longer. My heart sank, and I realized, in that moment, that my perfect life was about to come crashing down. The silence between us hung heavily in the air as my husband's gaze met mine. For a brief moment, I felt as though the ground beneath me had vanished. He didn't speak, didn't try to explain himself. The guilt in his eyes was unmistakable, but there was something else, something colder. It was as though he had already resigned himself to the fact that I knew. Whatever facade we had been living under was no longer sustainable. My mind raced, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. I could feel my chest tightening, my pulse quickening. The reality of what I had overheard was settling in. I had heard her say everything's going according to plan. Plan? What plan? What was going on between them? Had this been going on for months? How long had I been blind to it all? I couldn't look at him anymore. I turned away, my stomach twisting into knots. I walked toward the balcony, needing air, needing distance. Every step felt heavy, like I was walking through thick mud. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think straight. All I could hear was that voice in my head repeating, "Everything's going according to plan." I stepped outside into the cool night air, hoping it would calm me, but nothing could ease the storm inside me. My thoughts were a whirlwind of questions, of doubts. What had I missed? Was there something I should have noticed before? The laughter, the secret conversations, the way he looked at her. Had it all been right in front of me the whole time? As I stood there, I caught a glimpse of him through the balcony doors. He was still talking to his secretary, but this time there was no hint of guilt in his expression. There was only indifference. They were laughing, joking, like nothing had happened, like they didn't care at all. It was as if I was nothing, as if our marriage didn't matter. My hands balled into fists, my nails digging into my palms. I wanted to shout, to storm in and confront them both. But something inside me held me back. Instead, I watched as they moved together, their bodies closer now, a little too close. The way they touched, the way she leaned in, it was all so familiar. Too familiar. It was like something out of a movie, one where the woman always figures it out too late. I had always heard the stories, but I never thought it would be my own. Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my pocket, snapping me out of my thoughts. I pulled it out and saw that I had a message. It was from an unknown number. My heart skipped a beat as I opened it. The message was short, but it hit me like a punch to the gut. He's already made up his mind. It's not just about the office anymore. I froze. The words sent a chill down my spine. What did that mean? Not just about the office anymore? My hands trembled as I typed out a response. What are you talking about? Before I could hit send, my husband appeared behind me, his voice cutting through the cold air. Are you all right? He asked, his tone eerily calm, almost too calm. You look like you've seen a ghost. I turned slowly to face him. He had no idea what I had heard, what I had seen. He had no idea how much I now knew, or how much I was beginning to understand. No, I'm not all right, I said, my voice trembling with a mix of fury and heartbreak. And I don't think I ever will be again. He looked at me, his expression unreadable. For a second, I thought he might break down, admit everything. But he just stood there, quiet, like he was waiting for me to speak first. But I wasn't going to say another word. Not yet. Because I realized something. I wasn't just angry anymore. I wasn't just hurt. I was done. Done with the lies, done with the secrets, done with pretending everything was fine, and I wasn't going to let him get away with it, not this time. I stood there on the balcony, my heart racing, as my husband approached. His presence felt suffocating, like the walls were closing in around me. He had no idea what I had overheard, no idea about the message I had just received, yet he acted as though nothing had changed, as if nothing had shattered between us in the last few minutes. Are you all right? He asked again, his voice calm, almost too calm for someone who had just been caught in a lie. His tone seemed detached, like he was speaking to a stranger rather than his wife. I turned to face him, forcing myself to breathe, to keep my voice steady, but inside, I was falling apart. You think you can just act like nothing's happened? I replied, my words sharp. Like you haven't been lying to me, betraying me in front of my eyes? His face remained unchanged. He wasn't surprised by my anger, didn't seem fazed by my pain. He just looked at me with that familiar, tired expression. It's not what you think. I shook my head, unable to comprehend how he could still say that. Not what I think? I had heard it with my own ears. Everything's going according to plan. I could still hear her voice echoing in my mind. It was clear now. This wasn't just some misunderstanding or mistake. He had planned this, and I had been living in the dark for far too long. I crossed my arms, trying to maintain some semblance of control. Then tell me what's going on, because I don't understand anymore. What exactly is this plan you've been working on? He hesitated. For the first time since I had caught him, I saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes. He opened his mouth to say something, but the words didn't come out. Instead, he looked away, as if searching for a way to explain himself without actually having to face the truth. I wasn't going to let him off that easy. You don't get to just sweep this under the rug, not this time. My voice was trembling now, but I couldn't stop myself. The anger was rising in me, and with it, the overwhelming sense of betrayal. I deserved to know what's going on. I deserved the truth. His shoulders slumped slightly, and for a brief moment, I thought he might finally admit everything. Maybe he would confess the affair, tell me everything I needed to know to end this twisted nightmare. But instead, he closed his eyes, sighed, and when he opened them again, there was something cold in his gaze. I don't know how to say this, but I've already made my decision, he said softly. I don't think this marriage is working anymore. His words hit me like a slap. The air seemed to leave my lungs, and for a moment I couldn't move, couldn't speak. All of the years we had spent together, all of the love and memories, now reduced to a cold admission of finality. It was as if he had already made peace with the idea of ending everything between us, and I was just the last person to know. You've already made your decision? I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. So that's it? After everything we've built together, you're just going to walk away? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The look in his eyes told me everything, He had already made up his mind. He had already chosen her, chosen a life without me, without our family. I felt a knot form in my throat and my chest tightened. The world around me seemed to blur, and for a moment I thought I might suffocate under the weight of it all, but somehow I managed to keep my composure. I refused to let him see me break. Not now, not when I had finally started to see things for what they really were. "So, that's it?" I asked, my voice steady though my heart was shattering. "You're just going to throw away everything we've had? The kids, the life we've built?" He looked at me again, and this time I saw a flash of something. Regret, perhaps, or maybe guilt, but it was fleeting. "I never wanted it to end like this," he said softly, almost as if he was trying to comfort me. "But I think we both know it's been falling apart for a long time." I felt a wave of nausea. Falling apart? He had been planning this. All along, while I had been here thinking everything was fine, he had already checked out. He had already decided who he wanted to be with. "I think it's time for both of us to move on," he added, his voice cold, like the finality of his words had already settled in his heart. I wanted to scream at him, to make him understand the devastation he had caused, but I didn't. Instead, I turned away, my eyes brimming with tears I refused to let fall. I couldn't cry in front of him. Not after everything he had done, not after the lies, the betrayal, the cold indifference he had shown me. "I'm done," I whispered, more to myself than to him. "I won't be a part of this anymore." I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, alone. It was over. I walked away from him that night, but my mind raced with thoughts that I couldn't seem to control. It was as though everything I had believed in had shattered into a million pieces, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't piece it back together. I walked through the halls of the hotel, feeling a cold emptiness wash over me. The laughter and chatter of the party still echoed in my ears, but it felt distant, like I was in another world entirely. The decision had been made. My husband had chosen his path, and it no longer involved me. For so long I had believed in the vows we had made and the life we had built together. But now all of it felt like a lie. It wasn't just the affair. It was the betrayal that stung the most. He hadn't just stepped away from me physically. He had emotionally checked out a long time ago, and I was too blind to see it. I couldn't stay at the party. I couldn't pretend anymore that everything was fine. I needed space. I needed time to think. But as I left the hotel and stepped into the cool night air, I realized I was no longer sure of anything. The path forward was unclear, and I felt lost. I reached for my phone, desperate to reach someone, anyone. I needed to talk to a friend, to someone who could help me make sense of this. But as my finger hovered over the contact list, I hesitated. I had no idea how to explain this to anyone. How could I tell them that the man I had trusted, the father of my children, was ready to walk away from everything we had? How could I make them understand the depths of the pain I was feeling? I scrolled through my messages, then stopped when I saw the one from the unknown number. My heart skipped a beat as I opened it. There it was again. "He's already made up his mind. It's not just about the office anymore." The words sent a shiver down my spine. Who had sent this? How did they know? Was there someone else involved in this mess? Someone who knew more than I did? Was I being watched? I quickly typed out a reply. "Who is this?" But before I could hit send, my phone rang. My stomach dropped as I saw the number on the screen. It was the same one. I answered without thinking. "Hello." My voice sounded shaky, almost foreign to me. "You don't know me," the voice said, a calm but unsettling tone. "But you need to understand something. Your husband has made his choice. He's not coming back. You need to move on, for your sake and for your children's." The words hit me hard, harder than I could have imagined. I wanted to shout, to demand answers, but I couldn't find my voice. The coldness of the person on the other end of the line chilled me to the bone. "What do you mean, not coming back? What is this? Who are you?" I finally managed to ask. The voice was quiet for a moment before responding. "I'm someone who knows what's really going on. Your husband made a choice long before tonight, the affair with his secretary. It's just the tip of the iceberg. There's more you don't know, and you might not want to know, but you should." I felt like I was going to suffocate. I was in shock, too stunned to respond. The phone call ended abruptly, and I stood there, staring at the screen, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Who was this person? Why had they called me? Were they trying to help, or was this just another twist in the already tangled web my husband had spun? I looked around, hoping to find some clarity, but everything around me felt like a blur. I had to know more. I couldn't just walk away from this. I couldn't let him go so easily, not when there was so much I didn't understand. I had a choice to make. I could confront him again, demand the truth, or I could walk away and leave it all behind. But something inside me refused to let go just yet. I needed to know everything. I needed to face him, to hear the truth from his lips. Only then could I decide what to do next. But for now, one thing was certain. I wasn't done with him. Not yet. The fight for my life, for my dignity, was only just beginning, and I would stop at nothing to get the answers I needed.